My name's Dr. Kate Payne and I'm an educational psychologist at Cognos. This is part 3 of the Trauma and Executive Function series. In this video, we're going to be talking about organisation and planning and prioritisation. So thinking about executive functions as a whole, there are 11 different components, and these are the 2 we're going to be working on today. But please look out our other videos to find out more about the 9 other executive functions. So what are organisation and planning and prioritisation? So organisation is the capacity to be able to create and maintain a system to keep track of information and materials. Whilst planning and prioritisation is the capacity to be able to plan out steps to reach a goal and prioritise which steps are most important. And both of these skills are really key for everyday life and to be able to engage and access the school curriculum. So as with the other videos as well, it's really important that we can be able to explain to young people what these skills are so that they can begin to think about how they might be using them in their everyday practice and perhaps how they might have some difficulty in these areas. It's through this explanation and discussions that's going to help them on their journey to be able to have strategies to be able to support them in organisation and planning and prioritisation. So you can play some different games to try and promote the discussion around what is organisation. So as an example, solitaire is a really good game to play because it requires a level of organisation of the different cards to be able to carry out the game. And you can have a discussion with the young person about how they might be using their organisational skills to carry out this task. A second might be to show them a storyboard or have some pictures of completely random objects. For example, a dog, a castle, a car, and different examples like that, and asking the young person to put those together to create a story. And by doing this, the young person has to organise the different objects to put them in an order that can make sense to them within a story. And both of these examples can be promoting the idea of how we need to organise ourselves to be able to carry out the task. You can also then have a discussion with the young person around different examples of where you might need to be organised. So keeping a desk, locker or bedroom tidy, keeping books tidy in their writing so that it's easy to read, or talking about times when it could be harder to be organised, for example, misplacing belongings such as keys or sunglasses, and giving them examples yourselves when you've needed to be organised or perhaps when you haven't been organised. And so the more examples you can share together, the better that's going to be able to really promote the idea about where we need organisation in our life. Can also use activities and examples to discuss planning and prioritisation. So one example with the prioritisation with pennies. So with that, you give the young person 10 pennies and you ask them to write down 10 things that are important in school. And then you can say to them, okay, give the amount of pennies to each area depending on how important it might be. So if they put 3 pennies on one area, that might mean another area won't get any pennies. So it's teaching them that we need to prioritise and plan to be able to work out what's most important. Another example is to make a recipe together. So for this example here, we've got a peanut and jelly sandwich. So together writing down all the ingredients you would need to make a peanut and jelly sandwich, and then together writing a step-by-step plan to be able to make this sandwich. And then it's having that discussion around that about how it's important to have a step-by-step order because you can't mix them up and do different things in the wrong order. Otherwise, you won't get a successful sandwich. And talking about, how you can prioritize and how you need to plan to do that. And then you can open up the conversation again about different examples. So asking them, can you think of any other examples where we've needed to plan or prioritize? So it could be times when you have to focus on important tasks rather than the most fun task. So as an adult, you might be saying, actually, I really don't enjoy cooking or cleaning, but it's an important task that I need to do rather than the most fun, which might be watching a television program. So it's saying that, all of us have to always prioritize and plan to make sure the important things get done. Or you can talk about times when you needed to have the right materials or when deadlines have sneaked up. And they can think about their own examples when perhaps they haven't been able to plan or prioritize as much as they could have been. So once a young person has a really good sense about what these two key areas are, you can then move the discussion on to thinking about strategies, how we can have some compensatory strategies to support the young person in organisation and planning and prioritisation. So you can talk about some strategies to support organisation. And as we've been saying in many of these videos, it's really important the young person comes up with their own strategies and really can own the strategies that they've chosen, which are going to be helpful for them. So as an example here, always finding 5 things to put away, sort or tidy up, especially for a young person who's perhaps a little bit younger, and getting them to tidy up after their toys and giving them that key strategy to help them to know where to start. Having predictable routines and using visuals to help with organisation as well. Having organised workspaces, especially when perhaps a young person's doing some homework in the evenings, making sure things are in organised ways, they know where they can find what they need. For an older student, perhaps in secondary school, you might be thinking about colour coding to help them to organise their books or their subjects, or what things are most important or least important to be doing. Removing unnecessary items or clutter so that they have an organised, clear space, maybe for their bedroom as well. And also watching what organised people do, because that will help them think about how they can be organised as well. And the same with strategies to support planning and prioritisation as well. So breaking tasks into manageable chunks. If they've got a long coursework assignment to do, which is going to seem overbearing to be able to know where to start, but actually breaking it down into manageable chunks with smaller deadlines is going to help plan and prioritise what they need to do. Making a to-do list and then start with the 3 most important jobs. So that's a real practical thing to do. And I know in my job, I'm always writing to-do lists and ticking them off. And I find that a really helpful way to plan and prioritize my time. So sharing those examples of young people is going to help them think about what's going to be helpful for them. And then if they get an assignment or worksheet, circling the part that will be the most tricky and start there. Or sometimes it might be actually starting with the easiest thing to get going before they move on to the more challenging one, whichever works for the young person. And with this, it might be helpful if the young person can think about a particular time in their day or their week where they more so have difficulty with planning and prioritization, and then think about what strategy is going to be most helpful. And so I encourage you to, after having watched this video, to start those discussion with the young person that you have in mind. So if you've noticed that perhaps they do have a difficulty with organisation or with planning and prioritisation, thinking about opening up a discussion, and you can use one of these frameworks to help and to think about, okay, what is organisation? Let's draw a picture to show that. Provide some examples where they perhaps have had difficulty with organisation, and then thinking about, okay, what strategies can we use to help? And it's a really nice visual way of encouraging the young person to have a go themselves in some strategies. And the more that they are empowered to do it themselves, the more effective it's going to be. And so with many of these videos, it's kind of coming back to that same message about creating a toolbox of strategies for the young person, for them to have an awareness of the potential barriers to their learning when it comes to executive function skills, and then thinking about a strategy from a toolbox that they can develop. So the more they have in their toolbox and the more confident they feel to use it, the better they're going to be able to work independently, be organised, and plan and prioritise their time as much as possible. And I think it's the adult's job to be able to support the young person to be able to achieve this. Thank you for listening to this video on organisation and planning and prioritisation. We do have other videos coming out very soon on the other areas of executive function skills, so keep an eye out and please be sure to watch. Thank you.